Welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. How's everybody doing? Cool. Welcome to my video. I appreciate you stopping by, taking a look. For all my people in the Philippines, Maraming Salamat, Kumusta, Kaibagan. I appreciate you stopping by. I appreciate the support. For anybody that's watching from a Spanish-speaking country, because David Antón Guijarro is from Spain. ¿Cómo está? Hola, bienvenido. Bienvenido a mi video. Muchas gracias para ver. I appreciate everybody stopping by, like I said. And as always, I have those chess puzzles for you at the end of the video. I got a guy that's been on my page for a long time by the name of Romel. Get it right? Yeah, Romel. He's from Bulacan, my bad. I'll get it right. I'll get it right. He wanted me to give him a shout out. How's it going, guy? I appreciate it very much, man, for the support. Helping me with my Tagalog Filipino. Salamat for that, guy. So if you guys are ready to go, I'm ready to take a look at this. Before I forget, really important, subscribe. I appreciate everybody for subscribing like they've been doing. I'm sitting currently at 675 subscribers. So, I'm ever inching my way to, my dream promised land of 1,000, just to start things off. So I appreciate it very much if you've subscribed so far. If you're watching my content and you do appreciate, my analysis and just kind of the way I am, feel free. I appreciate a subscribe from you. But without any further ado, let's go ahead and get rolling. All right, so we have E4, we got E5, knight to F3, knight to C6, bishop to B5. We have knight to F6. We have castles. We have knight takes E4, which, as you guys know, is not a gambit of a pawn or not a loss of a pawn, because D4 comes after knight to D6. We see bishop takes C6. We got D takes C6, and we have pawn takes E5. And as you guys know, we are in the Ruy Lopez Berlin. Vladimir Kramnik did, play it pretty successfully against Gary Kasparov in their 2000 World Championship match. But keep continuing to roll. We have knight to F5. We have queen takes D8, king takes D8, and we have H3. Once the knight moves, we don't want any bishop to G4 situations coming, because a lot of times you move the rook to D1, and that pin can be very annoying. And then you might have to go something like knight B to D2, which blocks your bishop and just delays your development. And as bad as it might look, black is not in a bad position, just because their king is stuck in the center. Because once you do have queens off the board, there are a lot less tactics involved, and it's a lot less dangerous for your king to remain in the center of the board. So moving on, we have knight back to E7, which does kind of give a little bit back to white, because as you can see, it's not a suggested move. It's not a very highly played move, if played at all. It is, where was he at? Bam. Yeah. It blocks the bishop. The bishop doesn't really have the ability to come out at this point. It's not doing the best, trying to further the development. But like I said, it's not losing. It's not too bad. So we have rook to D1, we have king to E8, and we have knight to C3. As you guys were seeing from what I said before, now we don't have any bishop to G5 situations coming. So the development for white is just a lot more comfortable after H3. So we have knight to G6, we got bishop to E3, we have rook to E7, and we have rook to D2. And this is the novelty of the game. It's a pretty clear and logical move. So I'm really kind of surprised that it was never played before. Yeah, basically, what you're just trying to do is you're trying to double on the D file. You're just trying to completely take over this file as white. So like I said, it looks pretty clear. Make sure I'm good with that. Okay, it looks pretty clear, as far as what the intention and stuff is. Pretty logical, fundamental. So we have H5. Rook to E1, we have H4. So as you guys have seen from a couple different games that I've shown, Wesley so loves to do these H pawns and these A pawns, but it's a pretty clear It's a pretty clear intention. You know, you're trying to make sure you can get your rook out, and then also this pawn is freezing. These two pawns are making them very hard to move. So, you know, I'll go ahead and put that up in the top right-hand corner for anybody who's not familiar with that concept. It does become pretty useful in endgames. So we have knight to e4. We have rook to h5. We have bishop to g5. Bishop to e6. We have bishop takes e7, king takes e7. We have knight e to g5. Now, like I'm always telling you guys, you know, either one of these knights, if we back up, either one of these knights can go to g5. So you want to make sure that you're noting the correct one. So we do have knight e to g5. So we have bishop to d5, and we have e6. E6 is a nifty little move. It kind of sets a little bit of kind of like a trap. It's not that, you know, it's going to be bad for black, but we do see f6 in the game. So that is what's played. And so I just have a question for you guys. If you want to stop the video, let's go back. Let me just run through like a side variation. Let's say bishop does take on e6. We would see rook d to e2. And then after knight to f4, you know, seeming like it's attacking the rook and it's protecting this bishop. If you want to go ahead and pause the video real quick and see what white plays here. It's an exclam. It's a really nice move. So like I said, if you want to go ahead and pause it real quick and see if you can find that move for white, go ahead. I'll give you a couple seconds here. All right, bam. So the move is a Zwischenzug move, and it is rook to e4. Because as you guys can see, this knight is undefended, and it is attacking this. It's attacking this rook on e2, but the white has the ability to knock the knight away first, and then you're going to be losing some material because there's not really a good place to move this knight because you know, it's not going to be defending this bishop anymore. So once the knight does move, you're going to see knight taking, and then if their pawn takes, you're going to see the pawn take, and you're going to be winning the pawn. So like I said, f6 was played in the game. So we have c4. You know, we want the bishop to be deflected away from this this file. So the bishop does take on c4. So we have rook to d7 with check. We have king to f8. So knight takes on c7. And so we are sacrificing a piece here. Pawn takes g5. We have e7 with check. And of course, you know, king e8 is the only move because you don't want to allow, you know, the pawn to promote with a check from the rook. And you also don't want to move over and just lose the rook completely with something like that. So we have king to e8. We have knight to d4. We have pawn takes g4. Or pawn, we have g4. Pawn takes g4. We have rook to g5. We have knight to f5. And we have to sacrifice the rook for the knight. Because if we go back and take a look at it, checkmate is coming on this square. And because the king is actually pretty stalemated in this position. So if you allow this knight to jump into here, that's going to be checkmating the king. So you have to prevent that. So that's why we see rook takes f5, pawn takes f5. We see knight to f4, and we see rook to e4, which is somewhat artificial. It is the best move, but it's somewhat artificial because we do have knight to d5, counter-attacking the undefended rook on c7. So we see rook takes b7, we see bishop to a6, we see rook down to b3, we see knight to f6, and we see rook to e1. Now, something that was kind of interesting in the position that was actually really solid for white, and it could have possibly been a chance. After knight to f6 would be just abandoning the pawn on e7 and going ahead and snapping off the pawn on h4. Then after something like king takes, we would attack this pawn here. With rook to c3, after king to d6, we see rook to g3, rook to g8, and rook would swing to a4. And after bishop to c8, we would see rook takes a7. And then you can see you have a lot of pressure coming on this this pawn here. And so we don't see that. Like I said, we do see rook to e1, just maintaining this pawn on e7. And so we see bishop to c8. So rook to b4, we have bishop takes f5, rook takes h4. We have king down to d7. We have rook to d4 with check. So king goes over to c7. We have g4. You know, of course, you know, we can't take, if we were to see something possibly like, let's say bishop takes, you would just sacrifice the rook. not sacrifice the rook, but you would be taking the bishop to deflect this knight, and then of course you'll be able to promote here. So that's not something that we do. So we do see bishop back to d7. We see f3. And we see knight to d5. So king comes to f2. We have king to d6, king to g3, bishop to e6. We see f4. Bishop back to f7. We see f5. Rook to e8, and we see g5. And so we see a6. Now, if we back up here, in the position, if you look at it, it kind of seems like white. It seems like black can just win the pawn. You know, get at least a little bit of material back. But if we look at that, scenario, you will see why a6 was actually played. So after rook takes e7, we would see rook takes e7, king takes e7, and then we would see rook to a4. And as you can see, the position is much different because, you know, when a6, so if we go back to the position that we had, after a6 is played, if you do see rook over, you're going to be able to protect with knight to c7. So as you can see, it's a big difference between what we had when the rook went to a4 there, because now there's no way to protect this pawn. And so it's just a little bit different here. So going back to what we had. So we got g5. So we have a6. We have g6. And so we have bishop to g8. We have king to g4. Rook takes e7. So now you can take on e7. After rook takes e7, king takes e7. You see king to g5. You see knight back to c7. You see rook to e4 with check. King goes to d6. We see b3. So we see c5. So rook to h4. So knight back to e8. So we have rook to a4. Finally trying to get rid of that pawn here. So we see knight to f6. Rook takes c6 with check. So king goes down to e5 because we don't want to allow the rook to be able to take and sacrifice itself here. Because we would just be in a situation where these pawns would promote by force. So we have rook to a7, knight to e4 with check, king to g4, knight back to f6 with check. King comes to h4. After king takes f5, we see rook takes g7. We see c4. Pawn takes c4. Bishop takes c4. We see a4. We see bishop to f1. And I want to actually pose you guys a question here. Now, we are dead drawn in this position. It is like about 0.17 of an advantage for white. So it's basically heading towards a draw. Now, as you guys know, to give you guys a hint on what I'm going to ask you, you guys, I think a lot of you guys out there are familiar with the fact that with a knight and a bishop with a king, that's enough mating material in an endgame. So if you were to take off, you know, these three pieces, black would be able to, in a minimum of 37 moves. It's one of the hardest checkmates in the game. But I was wondering how many of you guys will be able to spot the move that automatically draws for white. So if you know it's heading to a draw, you just want to guarantee that you want to get a draw. If you want to go ahead and stop the video real quick and see what move guarantees a draw immediately for white, go ahead and do that real quick. Okay, cool. So for those of you, like I said, that understood that, I mean, black has sufficient mating material with these pieces, the move would be rook to f7. So if you found rook to f7 with the idea that you need to eliminate this knight to guarantee a draw, then congratulations, you have some good in-game knowledge, and you listen to what I said. So like I said, I mean, in this position, I mean, it doesn't really matter what black does. You're going to be taking this knight, and as you can see, this is a completely drawn position. You know, black doesn't have enough mating material now to do anything. So this would just guarantee, you know, exclam the draw. But, you know, as you guys can see, you're probably not wanting to go for that route because it's still, you still have a rook. So anyway, moving on, we see a5, we see bishop to d3, king down to h3, we see king to g5, we see king to g2, we see king to h6, we see rook to c7, we see king takes g6, king to f2, we see king to f5, we see king to e3, which allows the fork. Like I said, it is a drawn situation, so you know you're pretty much aware that you know you're going to need to trade down pieces and get to the draw. So you see knight to d5 with check, king takes on d3, knight takes on c7, You see a6 and knight takes a6. And we do have a draw by insufficient material. Like I said, a knight is not sufficient with the king to checkmate the king. There is no way to force it. Okay, so going to the puzzle that I gave you guys last time. This is a clearance sacrifice. So something that you should notice is the king and the queen are forked if you make this move. So the move is knight to f3 with check. It forces the pawn to take here. And you have begun the clearance sacrifice and blockading the situation. So after queen to h4, you see rook to h1, and you see bishop takes h3, bishop to d2. We see rook to f6, and the main issue that you're going to have here is this rook is going to swing over, and there's no way to swing this rook over because you'll have a discovered check, and that would be checkmate if you did pin the king down. So the bishop would have to take, and then after rook takes, this is the only way to deflect the rook away from making this move. So going to the next one. This is the next one for you guys, and it is a clearance sacrifice as well. So there is that. And okay, so I appreciate you guys coming through. And I say I just learned another word. So it's pa alam, which I believe is bye. And mabuhay. Mabuhay to you guys. I appreciate you guys. Mary Meg Salamat for coming through. Muchas gracias, you know. And I will see you guys in the next video. I appreciate it.